for the meeting minutes? I have none. Okay. All in favor of approving the January 10th, 2022 meetings? Vote by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the meeting minutes are approved. Let's see. Next on the agenda, we have one public hearing for 1930 Hillside Avenue, which is a site plan application for the Capital Kids Care After School and Summer Camp. I will read the public hearing. Notice is hereby given that the pursuant to the zoning ordinance of the town of Niskayuna and the applicable provisions of the New York Town Law, a public hearing will be held by the Planning Board and Zoning Commission of the town of Niskayuna in the town board meeting room at 1 Niskayuna Circle on the 24th day of January 2022 at 7:00 p.m. to consider an application from Caitlin Brownell for a site plan and special use permit at 1930 Hillside Ave relative to the following: an application to operate a child daycare center, after school and summer camp within a place of worship in the basement level of the Indian Orthodox Church located at 1930 Hillside Avenue in the town of Niskayuna. The property is located within the R2 medium density residential zoning district. A copy of the application for the after school and summer camp will be available for inspection at the planning department, in the town office building, and at the following website. Under the news and announcement tab, there will be shown during this public hearing. The Planning Board and Zoning Commission of the town of Niskayuna will hear all persons interested during an aforementioned public hearing. Do we have anyone wishing to speak about this project, either online?
Hi, I'm Katie Brownell. I'm the owner. I would like to say a few words if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to really thank everybody for this opportunity and let you know a little bit about what we'll be doing in the space if we gain approval. It'll be a year-round program for school-age kids. So that means after school vacation camp and a 10-week summer camp. So that goes from when school is out till when school goes back in. We'll be licensed, we'll be insured. The Office of Children and Families will come out and make sure we're doing a good job and fully license us before we get going. My business partner, Kyle, and I have over 15 years of experience in recreational childcare. I was a teacher before I started doing this, and we're just really excited to bring this program to Niskayuna. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brownell. Is anyone else wishing to be heard on this topic?
Chairman Diarpino, I did receive an email, while not specifically asking to be included in the public hearing, I believe that it was meant to be. So I do want to read that into the record.
Okay.
I'm sorry, my computer is very slow tonight. Laura, I own a building at 1919 Hillside, and frankly, I'm astonished by the traffic already on this street. It's not generated by the apartment complex across the street, but by buses and cars that use it as a cut through to Providence. The addition of parents rushing to bring their children to and from daycare and summer camp would add just that many more vehicles. My opinion is that it should not be located in the neighborhood unless Hillside Ave was turned into a one-way street between Providence and Niskayuna Road.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all I have, Chairman.
Okay.
Was there a name attached to that?
It was unsigned. Oops. Sorry, it was unsigned. There's an email attached to it, but it doesn't have a. I can read the email address. Well, I can't read the whole email.
Is there a company name associated with the email?
It comes from mfusco9@yahoo.com.
Okay. All right. Okay, seeing how there's no further comments on the public hearing, we are going to close the public hearing and move on to the next order. Let's see. Okay. Next order is the privilege of the floor. Anyone that has any topics regarding anything for the Planning and Zoning Commission can now bring them up. Do we have anyone online wishing to speak at privilege of the floor? And Laura, did we receive any emails or correspondence on anything regarding privilege of the floor?
We did not.
Okay. All right. So hearing no applicants, we will close privilege of the floor. Moving on to unfinished business, there is no unfinished business. And we will begin with new business. First up, we have a resolution 2022-5, a resolution for recognition of planning board member Morris Oster. Okay. The resolution reads as follows. Whereas Morris Oster was appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission by the Niskayuna Town Board on February 26, 2008, and served continuously for 14 years as a planning board member. And whereas Mr. Oster sat on a planning board during its review of large development and redevelopment proposals that shape much of the town of Niskayuna and help rejuvenate its commercial zoning districts and protect its residential character. And whereas on March 26, 2011, Mr. Oster was appointed by the town, Niskayuna Town Board member, as a member of the Comprehensive Development Plan Committee, on which he was instrumental in developing long-range goals to guide the town's land use and decisions of community growth patterns and protect the public health, safety, and general welfare of the town citizens. And whereas Mr. Oster, through his ability to hone in on critical issues, was able to ensure projects took into account the needs of surrounding neighborhoods and the greater good of the town. And he excelled at navigating and balancing competing interests, which was an incredible asset to the planning board. And whereas Mr. Oster, in his capacity as a planning board member, treated residents and applicants with kindness and respect and demonstrated the kind of excellence and service to the public that the town of Niskayuna strives for. And whereas Mr. Oster served the people of the town of Niskayuna with honor and distinction, and his knowledge and understanding of the planning process and the Niskayuna Comprehensive Plan will be greatly missed. Now, therefore, be resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission of the town of Niskayuna offers its personal and official thanks and appreciation to Morris Oster, as it does so publicly to commend him for his excellent service. Could I get somebody to approve the motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a multitude of people, Mr. Khan and Mr. Laflamme. I think before we call the roll, if anybody would like to express their gratitude to Mr. Oster, is he on the call tonight?
I
He's on the
apologize.
YouTube watching. I don't know if
Oh,
I
okay.
can-
I did not remember to send him the link. That is my fault.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Well, for the record, I would like to say that, although I never told him this, I'm going to tell it to him now. But Mr. Oster has been a personal role model for me on the planning board. I do like the fact that he's a voice of, a proper voice of dissent at times. And truly to the one, whereas in the resolution, he does really take the interest of the community to heart. And that weighs heavily on him and his decision-making. And, I appreciate that, learning those lessons from Mo. Thank you, Mo.
And I can say from a personal level, working with Mo on the comprehensive plan, spending the better part of 2 years together, it really was an enjoyable time, and I did enjoy the past few years that I did get to spend with him on the planning board here.
Yeah, Chairman, I would also like to add that Mo sat next to me for every planning board meeting that he was here since I have been a planner in the town of Niskayuna. And he was a great resource to me as well, very helpful, making sure, we'd make sure, together that we were both looking at the same thing and we're all on the same page because he is just that kind of guy. So I'm going to miss him personally very much. And I really appreciate everything that he's done for the town of Niskayuna.
Thank you. All right. Okay, Mr. Henry, you can please take the roll.
Mr. Laflamme,
Yay.
Mr. Scributennis,
Aye.
Mr. Khan,
Aye.
Mr. McPartlin,
Aye, and I'd just like to echo what my fellow planning board members have said. It was a pleasure getting to know Mr. Oster a bit over these years and working alongside him.
thank you. Ms. Shenfield,
Aye.
Ms. Gold,
I know I will miss you.
Chairman Darpino.
Aye. Okay, the resolution was passed, and we thank Mr. Oster for his many, many years of service. Okay, next up on the agenda is Resolution 2022-03, a resolution to make a recommendation to the town board on a special use permit to locate the daycare, Capital Kids Care, after school and summer program. We just finished up the public hearing, so we will go through and read the resolution. Whereas Caitlin Brownell has made an application to the planning board for the site plan review and special use permit stamp received December 6, 2021 Planning Office, Niskayuna, New York, for a tenant change to operate an after-school and summer camp at 1930 Hillside Avenue, Niskayuna. And whereas the site plan is shown on an untitled drawing showing the 1930 Hillside Ave property stamped received December 6, 2021, Planning Office, Niskayuna, New York. And whereas the zoning classification of the property is an R2 medium density residential zoning. And whereas the town zoning code section 220-10 district regulation C R2 medium density residential district 3 special principal uses include parentheses J child care daycare center operated within a school or place of worship qualifies as a special principal use for this zoning district. Whereas the planning board conducted a public hearing on January 24th, 2022 to consider the application for site plan approval and special use permit, and whereas the application was referred to the Schenectady County Planning Department, and whereas this board has carefully reviewed the proposal and by this resolution does set forth its decision hereon. Now therefore hereby be it resolved that the planning board and the planning board and zoning commission hereby recommends that the town board grant a special use permit to locate Capital Kids Care after school and summer camp within an existing place of worship at the Indian Orthodox Church at 1930 Hillside Ave, as shown on the site plan sketch received December 6, 2021, and a traffic routing map stamped December 19, 2021, subject to final site plan approval and the following conditions. Planning office will review and approve any proposed code compliant signage. I get a motion for the resolution.
I'll move for adoption.
Moved by Mr. McPartlin,
I second that, Chairman.
second by Mr. Laflamme. Any discussion?
Just one small technical thing. Does the version of we're looking at say code compliant or code complaint?
Oops, wait a minute. Let me look.
It should say code compliant.
Yeah, but
Yes.
okay, so we just want to correct that.
It's a typo.
Oh, man, I thought I fixed that.
Although
Yeah, so that's a friendly amendment. We'll just fix that typo before
Okay.
we record it.
it was read correctly into the record.
Yeah. I thought I fixed that one too. I noticed it.
So one question, Laura, to the point, at the point of the process we're at, it's really making a recommendation to the town board for the special use,
For the use.
right? Which is a special use.
Correct.
So any issues about traffic or anything else, that's something we will look at,
For site plan.
right, for site
Mhm.
plan on this
Yes.
program, right?
Yep. we absolutely can
In
do
the
that.
context of the email you received.
And I was just going to follow up on that. Have we ever, in this site, when it was previously childcare, have we ever had any issues with traffic or brought to your attention?
You know, I'm not sure of the years, and it was a daycare. I have never heard a complaint specific to this property, but I don't know if it overlapped me being a planner here or not.
I mean, part of the issue is that the times have changed, because I think it has been many years.
But it was a daycare for many, many years.
Right.
And I believe after Kitty Carr left, I believe another one went in and the use continued. It's unusual for it not to be operating some kind of child center. I live in the neighborhood. I have no connection to the church other than when they opened, they invited the entire neighborhood to come in. So I did meet some of the members, and I have no connection to the applicant. I've not seen a major traffic problem on Hillside in that area. I see more problems, frankly, on Pawtucket. Will there be a traffic impact? Well, since the use hasn't been ongoing for a while, probably. We could get additional information from the police department perhaps, but at this point, I don't see any basis for saying anything other than yes. It's a valued service that many people are looking for. And I think the history speaks well to it being located there.
Agreed. And I think traffic issues will, for Ms. Brownell to know, right, traffic issues, I think it will be on the agenda for our, site plan discussion.
Yeah, we might be able to see if we can find a general count so you can get a sense of, how many cars are being added. Although, I mean, Ms. Brunel might be able to speak to this. I think a lot of them would be dropped off by a bus, so it'll be mostly pickup, except in the summertime when obviously peak hours are a little bit different in the summertime anyway.
Right.
And then traffic goes
Absolutely.
down.
I can speak to that. The entire school year, most of the year, it would be just one bus drop off. There'd be probably 3 or 4 buses over the course of an hour. So not very much traffic. And then it's a very small location. We're not looking to have a ton of kids there. So it'd be like 45 at the most, something like that. Most of them are families. So it's not a huge volume of traffic, in my opinion.
And is pickup spread out over the course of several hours? Or do you have a
Yes.
specific pickup time for everyone?
It's spread out. Normally, in my experience, we find it pretty much trickles in starting at 4 o'clock, and we're open till 6 o'clock. So over those 2 hours.
Any other discussion items? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Henry, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme,
Aye.
Mr. Scributennis,
Aye.
Mr. Khan,
Aye.
Mr. McPartlin,
Aye.
Ms. Shenfield,
Aye.
Ms. Gold,
Aye.
Chairman Darpino.
Aye. The resolution was unanimously passed. Okay. Next item is Resolution 2022-04, resolution for site plan approval for a tenant change to S&G Roofing at 3800 State Street. For the record, I would like to recuse myself from this project, and I will be turning it over to Mr. Khan.
Thank you, Acting Chair Diarpino. Good evening. Let the record show that I am replacing Acting Chair Diarpino on this matter, Resolution 2022-04. And in the context of Mr. Diarpino's practice today, I will read the majority of the resolution.
Thank you.
Is there a comment or question? Okay. Whereas Sukhdev Singh, owner of S&G Roofing, has made an application to the Planning Board and Zoning Commission for site plan review to relocate his business from 4013 State Street in Niskayuna, New York to 3800 State Street in Niskayuna. And whereas the site plan is shown on a hand-drawn drawing entitled 3800 State Street, Schenectady, stamped, received December 30th, 2021, Planning Office, Niskayuna, New York. And whereas the zoning classification of the property is CH, Commercial Highway Zoning District, and whereas S&G Roofing qualifies as a permitted principal use for this zoning district, and whereas zoning 220, attachment 18, schedule IE, part 1, CH District, column 6, states that one parking space is required for each 225 square feet of gross floor area. Therefore, the building at approximately 11,518 square feet of gross floor area requires 52 parking spaces. As proposed, the site plan sketch depicts 33 parking spaces. Therefore, 6 parking spaces must be added to the site plan, and a waiver of 25% of the required 52 spaces, which is 13 parking spaces, is required. Whereas Section 220-19E of the code states that if, in the judgment of the planning board, the required parking would be excessive, the planning board may allow up to 25% of the required parking to be unpaved under bond to allow extra landscaped area. The planning board may require paving of the area left unpaved if it is deemed necessary at a later date. And whereas the planning board has determined that 52 parking spaces for this proposed site plan is excessive, and there is enough room to reconfigure the parking lot striping at a later date if more parking is required, and whereas this board has carefully reviewed the proposal and by this resolution does set forth its decision hereon, now therefore be it hereby resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission has determined that the proposed waiver to reduce the required parking by 25% is appropriate due to the pre-existing nature of the property and previous area variances granted to parcel for an automotive sales and service establishment, and therefore grants this waiver for said proposed site plan with the following conditions. 1, 6 additional parking spaces must be added to the site plan and delineated at the property. 2, parking spaces delineated on the site plan must be properly striped and signed prior to occupancy of the building. 3, the planning board may require paving or restriping of the lot if it is deemed necessary at a later date. And be it hereby further resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission finds the above referenced site plan meets the requirements of the zoning code and previous site plan approvals, and therefore hereby approves this site plan and tenant change with the following conditions. 1, signage. A, prior to issuance of a building permit, the planning office will review and approve any proposed code compliant signage. 2, landscaping. A, prior to issuance of a building permit, the applicant will review the project with the Niskayuna Tree Council and revise the site plan drawing to include the landscaping and plantings recommended by the council. 3, dumpster locations. A, prior to issuance of a building permit, the applicant will work with the building and planning office to identify appropriate garbage dumpster locations, add their locations and description to the site plan drawing, and include visual screening of the dumpsters to minimize their negative impact on the neighborhood. Do I have a motion for this resolution?
So moved.
Okay, a motion's been made by Ms. Gold. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Ms. Shenfield. And let's have a discussion. The applicant is also here, and I think can approach the mic and just state, your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is Sukhdev Singh. The address is 191 Fillmore Avenue, Niskayuna, New York, 12304.
Okay. I'd just like to say that, prior to tonight's meeting, Mr. Singh, Town Planner Mr. Robertson, and myself, we had a discussion about 3 items.
Yes, sir.
On the map, we identified where the 6 additional parking spots will be placed. And if, Laura, you want to, I don't know if you're able to point, but you can point to And so that right now seems to be, if you look at the photograph in our packages, right, that seems to be where they've got like a 18-wheeler trailer park there. So it is a parking spot. We also discussed the location of the dumpster, which if you're actually able to look at the Google screenshot or the screen of the photograph from the sky, you'll see that actually the dumpster is kind of already in that location.
Right, yeah.
But we'll need to, again, as mentioned, that will need to be communicated in the site map. And the last thing that we discussed was that the owner would actually, use some of the plantings similar to what is on that, south side of the property there on South Amherst, and use it to fill in the back for the adjacent property. And Mr. Singh has taken down the names of the plantings and would hopefully, update the site plan drawing to reflect all three of these: the stripe parking for the 6 spots, the dumpster location clearly in the drawing, and the placement of that landscaping. And then, as per the conditions, make sure those are implemented, prior to whether it's building permit or occupancy,
Okay.
as the conditions state. Any questions from anyone or comments?
I just want to clarify, is this a traditional roofing business where customers contact you and you give estimates and then
Right,
do the roofing?
yes. Yes, they don't really come to the office or the building. So we have a salespeople, they go out and give them the estimated proposals, contract. So we don't have really retailing going on there. Just the people work for us, few people in the office, some drivers, but everybody else, most of the workers go to the job site right from their home. They take the vehicles home, they go in the morning right from there.
And do you have a lot of deliveries?
No.
You go and get the materials?
Material we use, that gets delivered day before right to job site by the suppliers.
Okay, that makes me very comfortable with waiving some of the parking and all.
Do customers ever come to your business?
Very rare if they wanted to look at the color, to talk, really see, physically, they want to see the shingles or siding, they'll come. It's very rare though. Yeah.
There would be the oddball customer like me.
So what is most of the function that will actually happen at the building?
I'm sorry?
What is most of the function that will happen at the property?
Just we have, drivers come, leave in the morning with the trailer, dump trailer, come back end of the day when it's done. And just a few people work in the office. Like I said, once in a while, customer wants to stop by to see our display. And not much more though, really.
And the main reason for going to this property for the previous one,
Yes.
what was that?
That was the building actually have improved quite a bit in the last few years.
Mhm.
And this building I'm at now is kind of small. It's a little crowded sometimes, on the back and on the parking lot of the trailers. So we hired a few more people last year, a few more trucks here and there. But then this 3,800 State Street became available. We just want to grab the opportunity. That would be really good fit for us.
Okay.
More space, parking space, and building is 2 times bigger than we have now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from planning board members? Anyone, planning board members online?
Mr. Singh, you mentioned that you bring the dump trailers in. Do you have many dump trailers that you bring in the evening, or
We bring every day probably 4 or 5.
and then they leave the site for the day and then they come back?
Yeah, what we usually do, they come into the day from the job, they're full
Mhm.
with the debris, and they be dropped, evening. In the morning, they'll take empty with them to go to the job. And then we have 1 person or 2 at the jobs, at the site. They will go to the dump and empty them for them.
And so what's the delay in between the dropping of the debris and the
The
removal of the
delay
debris?
is, no, they be dropped like every evening. And in the morning, other person comes in 7 o'clock in the morning, he'll start taking to the dump, 1 at a time.
Is it just a timing? They finish the job late at night or later after hours?
It's sometimes, it depends on the size of the roof. Sometimes it get done 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 6 o'clock. It's not really hard to tell.
What is the latest it could be?
I'm sorry?
What is the latest it could be? In other words, what's
The
the,
latest in the summertime, probably 6:30.
and what time do you plan your business hours to be?
Yeah, well, they come in 7 in the morning,
Okay, so 7 to when?
7 to 6. Yeah.
So I do have a question and concern about the dumping of the debris. That, I feel like that's something new for me at least. I don't know about the other board members.
Excuse me, there's some, I don't know if I kind of didn't say right. We're not dumping anything at the site though.
So you're just leaving, you're bringing in a trailer full of,
Right,
of
and then
of
we
bad
drop-
shingles,
yeah, we
and then
drop the trailer
somebody's
at the
picking it
yard.
up?
Yeah, we just drop in the trailer at the yard, unhook the trailer. Then tomorrow, the same driver will pick up empty trailer in the morning to go to the next yard.
Okay, so the debris stays in the trailer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're just bringing it off and
Yeah,
then picking
yeah.
up.
No reason loading there, so.
Are the
They just
trailers,
bring it back end of the day because the dump is closed.
Yeah.
Sometime you get down 2 o'clock, the dump is open, they'll dump on the way
okay.
before they come back.
Are the trailers covered for the
Yes,
ones they
Of
are?
course, yeah.
Okay.
And you haven't had any issues with that at your current location, correct?
No.
Okay.
And do you do maintenance of your own vehicles in the garage bays?
No, we bring it to the garage, right?
Oh, you do?
Up the street from us, High Bridge, service.
So there wouldn't really be any truck work being done in the garage bays?
No, I mean, if there's light needs to be fixed, the signal, that's
You pull it
nothing
in.
major on it. Yeah. We don't have any mechanic at the site.
Okay, so no mechanic or automotive
Yeah.
or, automotive work at the site. Okay. Planning board members online, any questions, comments? All right, I'll take that as a no. And we have the resolution in front of us, which includes everything as stated, the waiver, the conditions. And I deem that it's, it looks reasonable. I'm glad we're able to have this discussion about debris. So, Mr. Henry, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme,
Aye.
Mr. Scribby Tennis,
Aye.
Mr. Khan,
Aye.
Mr. McPartlin,
Aye.
Ms. Shenfield,
Aye.
Ms. Gold,
Aye.
And
and
so,
Mr. Darpino recused himself, so Acting Chairman Khan voted aye.
right. And so the motion carries unanimously with the voting members with one Mr. Giardino recused. Thank you very much, Mr. Singh.
Okay, sir.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, and
Thank you,
good
everyone.
luck with the
Yeah.
business there. Thank you. And let the record show that I will relinquish the role as acting chair for this one item and turn that back over to acting chair Giardino. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Khan. Next item up is 1356 Balltown Road, the 18 townhome proposed subdivision. So an update on that. The 19th of January, Zoning Board of Appeals heard the case, and quick summary is that the application with the 54 variances was unanimously denied, and the project was not approved. There was a few public comments. All of them did not speak in favor of the project. There was quite a bit of discussion regarding character of neighborhood, a lot of discussion regarding the traffic on Balltown Road, and some discussion regarding water mitigation and water problems in the existing neighborhood. So as it stands now, this morning, I did speak with Victor Caponera, who was the attorney that represented the Millers. They are deciding what they want to do as far as the next step, but at this time, we don't have an active project, and it's up to the applicant to decide which way they want to go with their applicant. One of the things that was discussed at the ZBA was Mr. Caponera did outline the fact that if they chose to go with 17 single-family homes, that there were no existing zoning variances that had to be seen. So that was discussed at the zoning board meeting, but it was not a topic that was lengthy vetted out. What they were looking at were simply the 18 townhomes that were proposed with the 54 variances. I don't know if anybody else from the planning department wanted to add anything. I did watch the YouTube video, to get a better idea of what was, why the decision was made. And then they corresponded with the planning department this morning.
I guess it is what it is, right?
It is what it is. Like we've mentioned this before, it's tough situation because they're here with us for months. And then they go before the zoning board and there's, a decision that's typically made that night. And so it's just a different dynamic.
Right.
Well, the ZBA looks at very specific criteria.
Yes.
They're not the same criteria that
We
the
look
planning
at,
board considers. I had mentioned at the last meeting that I had gone back and forth on this because I see the issues that the ZBA did and that the neighbors had brought forth, but still we allow for this kind of unit, the duplexes in that area. So the use seemed consistent, but I was still concerned about the number of variances, even though we had over time greatly reduced the number of variances that were requested. The deletion of the additional 2-unit building had helped that, but still, they needed a lot of variances, and the ZBA did its thing.
yeah, and I believe, Mr. Diarpino probably said this to them as well. If, they want to change the buildings around, I believe the planning board's still happy to look at ideas, but
Mhm.
it's up to them.
Yeah, it's clear the ZBA is very well within their legal right to look at number of variances and deem them to be too much.
It's still a lot of
Right?
variances.
So, the ZBA is, well within their right for the decision that they made.
And
And it's up to the applicant to, to decide what their next step is.
And the extent of the variances, I think, is also a factor, because they weren't looking at a couple feet here and a couple feet there. There were sizable variances that were sought.
Yeah, so the zoning board didn't take them in pieces, but I think my sense from the zoning board was the same from the CAC, that they didn't necessarily mind the lot line going through the center of the duplex variances, but some of like the area variances and the frontage variances, they wanted to see reduced. But they took it as a single vote just because, the advice from the attorney was, you can't piece those out, they won't have a project.
Right.
So
So I
that's
guess
the
we'll,
update.
so that's the update.
We'll let you
Planning
know.
department will keep us abreast of any changes if the applicant decides to come back with a revised plan or decides to take a different action or walk away entirely. We'll just keep everyone informed of what the next step is. Okay. Any other, anyone else on the board want to talk about this project? We move to the next one? Okay. All right. Next one is 1340 Troy Road for a medical building interior renovation. Okay, so this one,
3140.
I'm sorry, 3140 Troy Road. Applicant for a site plan review to build out approximately 9,300 square feet of a new medical office space in addition to the existing 4,100 square feet of medical office space. So this is the building that is on, Troy Schenectady Road. Set one back over where Harding and Mazzotti used to be to the east of it. And it looks like that the building was not fully rented, correct? Or fully built out? It's my understanding from the
Yeah, so
information.
This is Dr. Chang's
this
property,
is Dr.
right?
Chang's property, and Clark included a lot of the backup documentation so that you
Mhm.
can see that there's some inconsistencies with the square footage, which we can't even really remedy, but we figure we'll just bring forward the square footage that they're asking. So it was approved as an 8,000 square foot building, but it was built as an almost 13,000 square foot building. It's currently only leased at about 5,000 square feet. So they certainly have a right to continue to lease up to 8,000. But it's 2-story and it has a basement. So if they were going to lease it the way that it was built, they need area variances for the parking.
And I could explain if, when we get to the square footage difference, so everybody can understand what the building is.
Who is the owner of the property? I didn't see that in the packet. Maybe I missed it.
It is Dr. Chang owns the property.
Okay.
Okay. And just for the record, sir, could you just please introduce yourself and who you're representing?
Of course.
Thank you.
Of course. My name's Ray Trotta. I am the owner of the Holland Trotta project, and we are a design management firm that's overseeing the architecture, engineering, the whole 9 yards of the project for the owner. And we're also working with the broker, which is one of our clients as well, that is soliciting medical office tenants that are interested in portions of the balance of this building.
Okay.
And if I may, if it pleases the board, I could explain to you exactly what was built, because I think there is a discrepancy between what is actually on the approvals to what is built, but there really isn't any difference. It's just more semantics, if you will, on how we will. Go ahead, if that's okay.
No, go ahead and explain the summary of what you
Okay,
believe the
okay.
square footage is.
Thank you very much. So basically, it was approved as an 8,000 square foot building on the site, and that is what is built. However, the 8,000 square foot is the gross area of the footprint, not so. Being that if you look at the building on your site plan from Troy Schenectady Road, as you're closer, because of the grade difference, if you're looking at Troy Schenectady Road, the building is actually 2 stories at Troy Schenectady Road, and then it moves towards 1 story towards the back of the parking lot. So basically, the first floor is 8,000 gross square feet, and then there's another 8,000 square foot that is the basement underneath. But almost, I would say, 2/3 of it is above grade. So when this building was built, the 8,000 and the discrepancy in the list is actual rentable square footage. So what we're doing is subtracting the storage areas, the common areas, the bathrooms, circulation staircases, all those things. So that's why we're looking at only doing another additional 6,500 of square footage on the lower level, if you will, or if you will, the basement. So the lower level, we call it a lower level because it is partially above grade. It's not a true below grade basement, and it is accessible. If you look at this space, this is the lower level. But if you look at the first floor, I think it's right before this one, kind of explain where, as you can see, there's a series of external staircases because there's all grade differences all over the place. Basically, to the left-hand side of this building is the space that got built out, and it was the whole building was permitted, obviously, and it's been built. I think it was 13 years ago. But at this time, what happened is they only had this tenant on the left-hand side, and that's Dr. Chen. So on the right-hand side, we have a tenant that's interested in it, and that's the 2,500 plus square footage that's on the right-hand side. That is all still underneath that 8,000 square feet, but it's not 8,000 square feet of rentable space, if you will, and that's what the description is. Now, when you go to the lower level, there's storage areas, and there's also obviously circulation areas with the stairs and whatnot. Those would remain as storage areas. We're just looking to expand the build out to this open space that's down there that is it's got windows, natural light, it's all above grade. And I wasn't privy when it was the special use permit was issued and whatnot, and they got the site plan. So I'm not sure why they didn't just get a full approval for the 16,000, if you will, square feet, but it wouldn't be 16,000. It would only be about 13,400 that is actual square footage of rentable area. And that's what the discrepancy is. Now, all of this, what we're looking for today is we're not building a thing from a planning board standpoint. We're just looking for actually a denial and recommendation to go to ZBA, which that was initially what I knew we needed a variance for the parking, because the parking, I believe it's 77 spots are required by the square footage of medical office, and we only have 56. With the setbacks, whatnot, we can't, there's nowhere to put the parking, if you will, that without getting other variances. However, from the operational standpoint, I've talked to Dr. Chen, they don't need any more parking. So it's more, the variance we're looking for is a code versus use need kind of variance. And I described with our engineer that basically the maximum build up, complete maximum, could be 18 exam rooms per floor with 5 staff per office, which would give you at an absolute maximum 56 spots, as that's what we have. So in this regard, most of the time we're only going to need about 35 to 40 spots. But we want to make sure, obviously, we have enough spots if they're fully built up. However, that doesn't obviously meet the code requirements of the 77 parking spaces. So we're looking for a variance between the 77 and the 56, obviously. So those 11 spots, if you will, that's 21. I'm sorry, 21 spots that we're looking for a variance to just have less parking and build out less space. Now, if the board wanted to recommend that we build out and take more grass area, we could do that. However, with the grade, as well as I'm assuming that the board doesn't want to have more impervious area, especially because we don't need it. So that's why we were requesting a variance. But I just want to clarify, we're not doing any exterior buildings at all. That from a planning standpoint, site planning standpoint, there's 0 changes to the building as it's built. We're just doing interior fit out. But to do that interior fit out, we have to obviously get a variance on the parking.
Okay, so just to be clear, on the parking lot, if you were to actually cut into the green space and repave over it, you could actually achieve the 77 spots that consistent with the interior built out area you're planning on doing?
I don't think we haven't done the exercise to get all of the spaces, but we could get a few of them. For instance, you could see when you come into the entrance, we could have some parking along the entrance, and then the additional parking would be towards where that transformer is on the backside a little bit, and then in the back area of the building. However, if we did all that, there is a significant grade change because, like I said, there's 2 stories exposed at Troy Schenectady. So we would have to ramp that down and do significant amount of retaining walls, things of that nature to make that happen. And honestly, it would really wouldn't be that much of a gain for doing it. If we needed it, we would have approached the board accordingly, but we don't need it from the operational standpoint. The other thing is the special use permit was permitted for medical office. This would be specifically medical office, and I don't have an issue with that being part of any approval, that this is medical office approved and not like mercantile or whatever.
I'm sorry, I'm searching. So how many parking spots are there right now for Dr. Chang's usage?
56.
And your plan would be to keep the 56? And
Correct.
request a waiver for the remaining that gets to the 77?
That's correct.
It would be good to have
Yes.
that represented, to see that on the site plan.
We can do that. We can do that without a question. And quite frankly, I apologize that I didn't realize the process that we were going to zoning. And then I didn't realize we had to get denied from planning to go to zoning. So basically we submitted this plan to be in, but I don't have a problem if we had to submit that for zoning. We're really looking for a denial at this point.
Well,
Okay.
this is a real conundrum because when the planning board approves an 8,000 square foot building, it's an 8,000 square foot building, not a 16,000 square foot building. If it's 2 levels, that needs to be part of the discussion and part of the approval. So how this happened is still very fuzzy to me. clearly there's no problem, well, I have no problem with using the main floor, the upper floor, and making that space usable. But the other area, I gotta think more on that one.
So please repeat again. So what will be the plan for the lower floor?
The lower floor would be medical office as well. So it's kind of a replication, but there's not as much area because there's storage area that's already in there. So it wouldn't be 100% build out. We're trying to do is 13.4. So we're not, I know it's written as we're asking for 9,000 additional square foot. We are not asking for 9,000 additional square feet to build out. Keep in mind that right now, if you look at in your packet, let me scroll over to it. Right now, there's 4,100 square feet and 2,800 square feet. So there's 6,900 square feet on that first floor. So if we went by with the board member was asking for 8,000 square foot that was in the document, then we could still build, I guess, 1,200. I think it would be about 1,200 on the lower level because that's what the approval says, 8,000. But the building was built and the building permit was, obviously this building's been there for 10 years. So nothing has changed on the building. The stairs are there, the common areas are there, the restrooms are there. It's just, there's just a vacant area that's on the lower level. Now, I could tell you that they just have it on the upper level. As of right, I could just put in a building permit right now because that is just, they just never had a tenant. That's all. Now they do.
So
That makes sense.
thank you, Mr. Tread. There's a couple things that probably be helpful from just the board's perspective of seeing this is that if you were able to take the floor plans and simply just color code them to what the existing tenant looks like now compared to where you'd like to build out and have, just the two different juxtapositions over that would help us understand, the inside interior space that you're looking to gain. Now, the other thing, as Ms. Gold said, which I think is a good idea, take the parking lot plan and delineate the 56 existing parking spaces that are on there.
Yes.
I think it would be prudent to at least go through the exercise of trying to add or reconfigure parking if you could get the number down to a manageable amount. Now, the planning board is allowed a certain percentage that we can do internally. So there may be an opportunity that you do not have to go through a denial. You might be able to reconfigure this lot. I mean, a couple of things that come to mind is you have two curb cuts on the back access road, which might be able to accommodate 3 or 4 spaces. And again, like you said, you can come in on this wide ingress road if there was diagonal parking there. There may be ways to reconfigure this that would work to the advantage of not only the current tenant, but a future tenant.
Yep.
And almost solve all of the things that you're looking to do. Normally, when we see an interior, we see an interior tenant change because that's the typical process that we have. When the parking gets looped into this, then you get to a whole nother level.
That's right.
And, our recommendation to the zoning board is only a recommendation. So anything that we could do here that may be able to solve that, or at least get that down to a more manageable or a smaller number may be beneficial to your client. Just because, the current existing uses is that, hey, we got 56 parking spaces, we don't use them, doesn't mean that down the line, the next tenant may come in and have a higher turnover rate. And then because you've gone through thinking that the existing condition wasn't really needed to be improved, you make it a very difficult position for them to come back to us in the future to try to change something that we work towards. And trust me, I'm the first person that doesn't want to add parking as if we don't need to, but you're going to be adding a lot of interior square footage in here and not knowing what the business plan is of the client that's coming. There may be times where they do need that parking.
Understood. If I could just kind of walk you through, and I don't have an issue with what you're saying. It's just I just don't, I'm always a proponent of not going through the exercise of making more problems. And I just want to kind of explain to you what I mean by that. We're looking for a parking variance and an area variance of one single thing. Everything in this parking lot was designed to your code. So basically this, if you look from the parking island that's shown right now, that white area that looks next to the catch basin on your screen right now, that if you draw a line right to the other island that's between those two driveways, that's double bank parking to town standard. If you look at next to the building, those are single bank parking. If you look at the bottom under area 1.234 acres, those are single bank parking. And then if you look at the top where it says asphalt, those are single bank parking. So everything else are travel lanes and access points. So you are right. I could probably get a couple spots, maybe at either the lower or the higher entrance, but that would you would lose spots because I'd have to circulate the parking lot to get to that entrance. So if you look at this, you drive in one way, double bank parking on it, go around the circle, double bank parking on it. There's no other way. If you close one off, we'd have to have a travel lane to get from one point, which is 24 feet wide, and all of a sudden you just lost 4 parking spots. So it's kind of like and don't get me wrong, we've looked at it. We looked at how can we, now if you look at the back of the building, the grade goes from 0 to about 16 feet below grade. So it's a straight angle, and that doesn't fit. If we put cross parking on there or parking spaces, then even if it was single bank, because I tried it, you basically you're at an angle that's illegal in New York State to design it from ADA code of a parking spot. If you look at the other side, it's the same thing, and we're into setback. So the only reason I'm bringing this up is if we do this exercise, you're going to create like 5 or 6 variances. And I know the one before the planning got to where you guys wanted it, but it was 54 variances. I don't want to do the same thing to you and say, hey, we came up with a plan that doesn't work, but let's see how we could do it. So I just want you to keep in mind, and I apologize, and I'm not sure if Clark could call up the aerial photo or aerial from Google, because you could see it's all built and all the parking spaces are right there. It's pretty easy to see.
That's
I was actually
your
looking at it.
job.
I'm sorry, Ms. Gold.
It's actually the applicant's responsibility to show us what's there.
Oh, and I could share. Can
And
share
I will
screen?
note,
Is that possible?
not only is a picture worth 1,000 words, but you can present topos to us to support your position.
Right. I was also going to recommend the topos. So let me just make one thing, ask a question. And Mr. Trout, I appreciate that you don't want to make work, but at the end of the day, Laura, I think, did you issue a denial letter? Because the denial comes from the planning department, and the planning board, our role is to make a recommendation to the ZBA. And to the point that Chair DiArpino was making a few minutes ago, before we make a recommendation, we take a very, close and comprehensive look at how we can minimize those variances, and also, enable the applicant to be able to find a successful outcome. So I know for me personally, without seeing the parking lots delineated and without seeing the topographical map, I can't make a recommendation to the ZBA on what to do here,
We're on the same page.
right? So I could make a recommendation to them well,
Well,
There's your picture.
Well,
It at least explains what I was talking about. And I'm not trying to avoid work. Please don't think. And honestly, Clark could tell you I've been on everything he's asked. So if I realized this is what you needed, you would have had it. That's not how I do business. What I'm just trying to tell you is the board's here. I don't want to waste your time. I wanted to show you what I was talking about, just so you can logically understand what I'm trying to explain to you. And if you look at this, our plan will show the exact same thing. The double bank parking I was talking about, the single bank parking on the outside, you have to circulate it somehow. That all meets town code. That all meets engineering guidelines. That's all I'm saying. If you look at the other side, if you scroll up on that screen a little bit, the other side of the building, there you go. You'll notice that there's nice landscaping on that side. We'd have to take that all out. And the grade change is basically, you can see from the shadow lines, but if you put the little, I'm not sure if you see actually the little picture that's to your left-hand side of the screen of the building, you can see what the grade change is. You can see how how it gets steeper and steeper as you go from one side. It's flat on, it's a single story at the parking lot level and it's 2-story at the,
Okay, so I mean, so since we're gonna do it, so if you can please leave it up, Laura.
Oh,
So
sorry.
what's the status of the Martin Harding and Mazzotti building? And is there a possibility to work with that owner to get an additional, to the point Mr. Derapino was making? So let me pause there for a second, introducing that topic. Mr. Trotta, do we know who the new medical office client is for the part that you're planning on renovating?
we have one interested. I'm not sure if I can share it with you. I'd love to,
Okay,
but I'm
no,
not
no,
sure if I
I
can share it
wasn't,
with you.
it didn't matter who, but so the part that you're planning on building out, will that be suitable for only a single new medical practice or more than one medical practices?
The part that we're building out will be that we have a tenant right now will be single on that main floor, if you will. And then they have another one interested in the lower level, but I have not talked to them yet. I haven't talked to them.
Right, so when
So-
it's all said and done, according to the plan you just mentioned, we can have, including Dr. Chang, we can have 3 separate medical practices
Yes.
in this building
Correct.
if it's built
That is
out.
correct.
The-
That is correct.
So I have a concern about the 54 or 56 parking spots.
And I would note different medical practices have different rates of patients per hour and turnover and all of that. And we don't, when we approve a building of certain size, we keep the parking requirements in mind. That's part of the overall process. So when we approved a building of 8,000 square feet, yes, we looked at the parking then, and we wanted it to be commensurate with what was needed. When you're looking to more than double the usable space, up to 8,000 on that first level, not an issue, but to add a good deal more, that you would need more parking is just logic. And I don't know how to put that any simpler.
Oh, I can understand what you're saying. I just want to clarify, because you did ask the question about if we pull up the plans again, just so everybody, and I have no problem with providing you all this information. I just want to make sure while we're here, I'm answering your questions. So right now, if you look at the first floor plan, if that's possible to call that up.
Yes, sorry.
We're looking at it.
So on the first floor plan, I'll look at it on my screen here. So basically that floor plan has, you'll notice that it shows like an area that shows like basically exam rooms, everything's kind of shown there. That is built. That is built out. That's what's there right now. To the right of that, it says tenant space. That's what we would be doing on the first floor. Just actually putting a tenant in that space. So that's about, I would say it's close to about 1/3 of, maybe 1/3, maybe a little bit higher, that would be on the first floor. If we move to the lower level, if you will, the basement, it would be the left-hand side of the plan is generally where they're looking to put that, and the rest of it would be storage on the right-hand side. So I don't disagree with any of the comments that you're saying. I just want you to understand what's already built. And again, that is, as we were saying before, the square footages, there's 2 different things we're talking about. The 8,000 square foot, I would have basically, I just want to, this is from what we, that square footage, we actually have 41 and 20. So if you guys did nothing right here and said, the variance is not approved at all, or we don't recommend it, obviously it'd have to go to zoning board, but it would be minus 8,000. Yeah, I could do 1,100 square feet on the lower level without even talking to you guys. That's just going to building permit. And that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to work with the team. And that's why I just want to make sure everybody understands what the square footage is, the 8,000 square foot. And that's why I wanted to clarify, whoever approved it, this was way before my time, it should have been clearer to you guys on how it was approved. So it's kind of weird how it's approved.
Well, and I understand that our planning department has done some research and is still looking further, correct?
I mean, we put the research that we could find in the packet, which is mostly just we wanted to make sure that it didn't require a new special use permit, which it does not. I clarified that with our town attorney. But the square footages, do bring up the parking issue, which is why, one of the things that the planning board does have the capability of doing is a parking waiver, which we can put in the denial. And then sometimes the applicant has a choice to pursue planning or zoning on the parking. But, just to clarify to you, Mr. Trotta, I know this is the first time you've worked with us and you've been wonderful to work with. You have as a right to put tenants into that property, but the planning board still does tenant change from vacant to, so it's basically administrative, but the planning board would see the tenants as you move them into the building. You have
Okay,
a right to
I
put
did not-
them there.
I did not know that. I thought it was change of use. I
Yeah.
thought it was any change of use.
Yeah,
Change
we
of
did-
tenancy is a different
We
thing.
did a tenant change and a lot of times you wouldn't necessarily see it. A lot of times the only time the planning board would see it is like if, Mrs. Chang moved out and then, a brand new thing moved in, but when it's vacant this long and then you get a new tenant, it does trigger tenant change at the planning board. You have a right to put the tenant there. But the planning board will
Gotcha.
check things
Well,
like,
just-
is the use right and stuff like that.
Sure. And please, I don't want to sound argumentative to anyone. I just so you know, I work with planning boards all the time, and I'm a solutions kind of guy to work with everybody and not force anything down your throat. That's why we're being very upfront, telling you everything. We're not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. To me, this was a new one on how it was approved, because that's what I was saying. It was kind of weird. And I talked to Clark about that. I was like, this is kind of weird how it was approved on because I agree with you. It should either be specified as footprint, or it should be the entire square footage. But for whatever reason, it was approved and then it was built. And I'm not sure. It was before my time, so we could all claim immunity into that one.
So
But-
honestly, I don't feel I have any confusion around the math, right? I think you're very clear in what is existing there in the 4,100 square feet with Dr. Chang's. The 2,800 you want to build on the main floor additional, and then the remaining 6,500. So I'm clear on that, and we're clear that you need, for the 13,400 square foot, you'll need 77 parking spots. So my thing really is just to have a discussion, understanding as to how suitable is it going to be, and that's a recommendation we have to make, and how appropriate it's
Sure.
going to be. To not have that, somebody do the math for me, right? 56 and 77, right? So that's 21.
Mhm.
To not have
Yep.
21 parking spaces. To not have 21 parking spaces. It's a big number.
And to kind of, work off of that comment, I think it would be good. Let's, I guess, back up a little bit. Schedule, what is the client's schedule here as far as what they're looking to do to get this fit out started?
They would like to start drawings to go in for permit probably in the next month on the first floor, the one to the right-hand side of the doctor's office right there. And then on the lower level, they're talking to a client in the next 90 days. So it's basically, they would be putting in plans on both sides. I would say to I won't say put shovel in the ground, but start swinging hammers, if you will,
Okay.
because it's all internal. Probably in the, I would say March, April range.
Okay.
Realistically, they say February, but I would say it's March, April.
So timetable wise, if you were to go to zoning, they meet once a month, so there's a recommendation that has to come from us, and then you have to get on the agenda for the next meeting. So in between that time, and this is my opinion, I think it would be helpful to see a little bit more of the coding of what you're looking to do for the interior fit out. So it's very specific in case this does go to zoning. And then secondarily, take a pass at the parking. And if there's a way that you can look at reconfigure the parking, or if you do come up with a drawing that shows that between the site constraints and, where the green space would be compromised, what it would be to add a couple more spaces, you might find out that You may
Sorry
find,
about that.
you may find
Barking
out that
dog.
you may find out that there's only a handful of spaces that could be added, which would then support a recommendation that we vetted this out in the course of, between now and the next meeting, so that it substantiates to say, hey, look, maybe 56 is the best number. And then the other item too is that to take a look at the business plans of your clients to make sure that they wouldn't be committing to a building that may have some parking restraints on there. So I know that there's a summary here in the one letter that gets you up to the 56, but any additional information to support that would then be helpful for us to vet out this decision.
That's very fair. And just so you know, which I have no problem sharing, we actually went through the exercise, and I don't mind sharing their draft sketches that, in our CAD and whatnot, that show trying to get those parking spaces in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I just scrapped them. I'm just like, and the other thing is Clark enlightened me, if you will, that we were going in for zoning approval. I wasn't going in for planning. And at the last minute, I found out that I was bucking the process, if you will, that I had to get denied first. So I submitted. So that's our fault. I wasn't planning on submitting to planning. I was planning on getting denied by planning, if you will, and that process. So I apologize. I have no problem sharing that information with you. And also, we could easily do a combination of the aerial and the existing building with the parking shown, so you could see what's there. We could also show you our exercises of trying to put more parking spaces on with the topography, and so you can understand that. And color coding the plan is no issue whatsoever. I could easily do that. That's not an issue at all.
And I would like to recommend that you take a look at the property next door and see if there is, do we know on the Martin Harding Mazzati property, are they built out in the parking spaces for their square footage? And they're also a different use, right? They're office space.
I have looked at it. They're currently vacant, although they do, I think at one point had owned the adjacent property.
It's clear in that photograph you brought up that that was an old photograph because their parking lot's full.
Yes.
Yeah, and I have no problem asking that question of Dr. Chen, and obviously securing that. We got to see the viability of A, if they'll lease it, or B, if he could purchase it. But then whatever the rent is, $20 a square foot, now it's got to go to be 50 to pay for the parking lot you have to buy. So which is not your problem. I just got to ask them if it's worth it for them. So I could definitely do that without a question. And it's a decent comment. The other thing is I will put on the table, he does own a property down the street, but it was about 600 feet down the street, and I thought it was too far of a distance. He's like, "Oh, my employees could park there or what," and I just didn't think that'd be acceptable to the board. So I could
The potential tenant.
Yes. Well, no. I'm talking to Dr. Chen, actually, and if you have the Google Maps up again, I could actually show you the property.
I was looking at it. Whoops. Hold on.
We'd have to zoom out a little bit. So if you look at Vly Road and Valley Point, that property that's right across Vly Road, it go down a little bit on the kitty corner. Yep, right there. Yep, he owns that property. So that property over there, he's owned. Yeah, not that one. The other side, the other corner. That's looking at the. Nope. It would be on. Nope. Where the little north arrow is, it's actually right at the end of Valley Point Drive and Vly. There you go. That house right there. So I personally thought, employees could park there and walk down the street, but it's about, I measured it to be about 600 feet, and I thought that was kind of. I didn't think you guys would even entertain that, but it is only one huge property with. It's not ridiculous, but it's something he was willing to put on the table, and I could show that when I show you again some more materials. I have no problem showing that. I just wanted you to know there is another opportunity. I just didn't think it was. I didn't think it was practical. Let's put it that way.
Considering we're in the great Northeast, I tend to think you're correct. It's impractical.
Yeah, walking there in winter right now, I wouldn't want to be one of those employees.
Mr. Trotta, can I confirm something? With the lower floor, you referenced that it is at first floor level, essentially, like it's a walk-in, walk-out. Is there an
Correct.
actual door or an egress, or are patients and whoever's going to be renting that space going to be walking downstairs? Like, is there a door from that lower?
There is a door that's in the middle of the stairwell. That if you look at that front, that door is actually on the landing that's in between 2 floors. So either go up or you go down.
So you're there, so you are walking down. There's not doors,
Right.
there's not an egress from the actual, you have to go upstairs to exit?
Correct. And that
Uh.
if you look at this one, there's stairs up the front. The only at-grade door is where you're showing it right there from the parking lot. But actually from the driveway, it's up a series of stairs, as you can see. It's a switchback staircase.
And is
On
there
the
an
backhand
elevator?
side, the staircase is internal.
I didn't see an elevator.
Is there there's no elevator in this building?
No, there is not an elevator.
Is there room to put one?
Possibly. There is possibly room to put
I
an
don't-
elevator. And actually, I was going to suggest at minimum a lift. That's
They're
what I
just
was
to make it ADA compatible for.
Yeah.
for- Yeah.
Exactly.
for Lower,
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's a building
I
department.
would agree.
right.
Well-
That to me would be an essential component, unless you had some specific niche that probably is going to be harder to rent. So I would agree with you. I think it makes sense to at least have an ADA lift. at a
And so
minimum.
you would reference then there's lots of natural light from the windows. So they're all raised windows though. They're not.
Correct. That's correct. And you were seeing that from the Google Maps you were just looking at?
I mean, I was looking at the plans.
Yeah. If you look at that on the backside, all those are above grade. Everything is above grade on that side. And on the backside, it's even more so because you don't have that retaining wall where the stairs to the front door. On the backside, 3/4 of the building is above grade. You could probably see it if you go down the road a little bit more. But you can see those windows in the front. You can see those are all above grade windows.
So it's kind of like a raised ranch type of structure?
Correct. That's exactly correct. Except it's actually depressed in this case. And you can see the windows on the back. It's almost depressed in this case. It's like a ranch with a floor below it.
Yeah, raised
But raised
ranch.
ranch is correct.
Right. So the lower floor.
Okay. So any other items from board members that we want to discuss here?
I guess my question would be, where is the next planning board meeting? Would there be another planning board meeting before zoning? I guess is the question.
Our next planning board meeting is before the next zoning board meeting.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I could have everything you're asking for that meeting.
And the date of that meeting is February 14th, right?
Valentine's
February
Day.
14th.
February 14th for the next planning board meeting.
Valentine's Day.
And the ZBA is,
It's probably the 16th there.
Correct, 16.
Yeah, thanks, Clark.
Is that too close for the recommendation?
No,
This is
that's
not-
okay.
Yeah, we can do that. Okay.
no, they fly with that.
Yeah, there.
All right.
I read it into the record at the zoning board meeting, so it's not in their packet when it's that close.
So, Mr. Trotta, that's the schedule that we have in front
We
of
could
us.
do that.
Oh, go ahead.
I'd appreciate if you could put us on the board, and I thank you for all hearing me out. I just wanted to make sure I put you up to speed, so you kind of knew what you're dealing with.
Okay. Since this project is one that we'll be seeing again, if anyone is interested in being a project lead, please contact the planning department and Chairman Walsh, and we can add that on. In the interim, if there is a project lead, they may reach out to you, Mr. Trotta, just to discuss a few
Sure.
things. And then, again, just to summarize, it'll be very helpful to see those other items that you have, design, charrettes, parking evaluations, whatever you can to, basically justify what your position is currently here. And if it does evolve or change, then we're happy to discuss it with you.
One
Fair
question.
enough. That's fair.
Is there a problem if one or more of us drive into the property and take a look?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. You're more than
Thank
welcome.
you. I never go without permission.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, because it's one of those things. I actually think it's a good idea because you got to see it and understand it. It's one of those unique kind of situations. You know, you look at the footprint and then you look at the building, and you know, it's pretty simple when you put the two and two together. But if you're looking at a plan, it really doesn't paint the picture for you.
If you don't know where to look for it, you would not notice it as an office building.
That's correct. It looks actually like a huge residential house, actually.
Yeah, remember when Dr. Chang came in and that was the biggest point about she wanted bigger signage, remember? And it's very easy to actually miss that driveway to go into that parking.
They even have a variance for the sign, I think, clerk.
Yep. They do have-
Saw that one, yeah.
Well, I remember the original request because I was on the planning board back then too. And this amount of space was not what I was voting to approve. So there's a conundrum here for me.
I can understand.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Trout, for your time, and we'll see you at the next meeting.
I appreciate your time, and again, I'm more than willing to work through all these situations. Hopefully, we could come to something that works for everybody.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next item. 1748 Union Street, an application for site plan review for the demolition of an existing house and the construction of a parking lot use for the neighboring quick serve restaurant, formerly Key Bank Building at 1742 Union Street. I believe we have the applicant, Mr. Paul Filati is joining us, correct?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. So a quick summary of the application that's in front of us. We have neighboring properties. Oh, thank you, Laura, bringing that up. Neighboring properties here. On the right-hand side of the pink line, that would be the area that the new parking lot would go in, which is an existing two-story house that's on the property. And then that would be reconfigured to have a parking lot put into it with the existing curb cut out onto Union Street that's there. And a new restaurant would go in.
But the restaurant would be in the city of Schenectady.
Correct. So there is a split municipality here. So part of this is in Niskayuna, and also part of this is in the city of Schenectady.
This is a bigger conundrum for me.
Now, only because I had some firsthand experience with this, I believe the lot line, or the line that delineates between the town and the city actually cuts through the parking lot of Key Bank. Is that correct, Mr. Filati?
We have a basic plan that was given to us when we got entered into the contract for the property,
Okay.
and it's not a great plan. So it
Yeah.
does need to be surveyed for me to accurately represent, to answer your question.
Okay. Yes.
Does it cut through that area? There's a little bit of a grade change. I can't point, but where the arrow is that cuts from where we're proposing from the Key Bank over to the parking lot, that little
Right.
white arrow,
Mhm.
there's a grade change in there.
I mean,
It seems to go pretty straight back. But again, I'd have to get it surveyed. We started out with this like last Thursday on a quick email to kind of get a blessing on it.
Mhm.
And Kevin and the owner had some conversations with Laura. So I was picking this thing up to say, hey, is there something we can do with that adjacent parking lot to gain more spots? Do we need 40? No. Does it work with the flow? The existing house is in a terrible spot and it's not in great condition. So our first intent was to, which I know it doesn't work in the town, is to demo the building. But if there was a configuration that maybe we get a building up near the road and it'll accommodate, we may be able to look at that also. So I wanted to throw that in there. We knew coming into it that Laura had said, hey, this thing isn't going to work. But we're also saying, what are the options to get it to do something with it? The existing structure is not useless or useful to us.
Mhm.
It's not in great shape. It'll probably cost more to repair, to fix it up than it's worth for the way that it's laid out. See how it's right in the middle of the parcel right there? So this gave us nice ingress and egress. But we could look at another type of configuration for it.
So the main thing is that the main reason why this doesn't work only on the Key Bank site is that by changing the use to restaurant, the parking requirement's gonna change.
No, so the reason it doesn't work is that it's an independent lot. And if you remove the building, just a parking lot is only an accessory use and you don't have a principal.
Right.
And so you actually need a use variance to have only a parking lot in this.
No, I'm
zoning
sorry,
district.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Let's say we're only looking at the Key Bank lot.
Oh,
Why doesn't that lot work, which is in Schenectady, all of it, most of it? Let's assume all of it for a minute. Why doesn't that work for putting in a restaurant and having, do they have adequate parking there?
It doesn't have enough of parking. For a bank, you're in and out,
Right.
but
Okay, so-
Yeah.
the fast food restaurants,
So,
they get.
right, so the need became is that by making Key Bank into a restaurant, you now need additional parking. And
Correct.
that's why you're deciding to move next door. And I
Correct.
understand all the arguments about the principal use and all that, but now you're gonna end up with a situation where you're actually going to have a lot more parking than the restaurant needs, right? If you do.
It
what the
depends
plan
on
says
who
here.
goes in there. Is
Right.
there a significant amount of extra parking? Maybe not,
Okay,
or maybe. So we showed it as, I guess I didn't use the word guess. We're coming in to say, hey, is there a possibility to get a variance to be able to do the parking as indicated?
so,
If not,
so if you were to look at
what
this
else?
as one parcel,
what can we do?
there's also gonna have to be a merging of two lots action too, right, Laura?
We can't merge them, can we?
so I talked to, sorry, I don't know what happened with my clicking. I messed it up. You can't merge a parcel across the city line, but I don't have a great map of it. There is a tiny piece of the city of, of the Key Bank parcel in Niskayuna, and there's a tiny piece of the Niskayuna parcel in Schenectady.
Right.
Because it's this little funny track line.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you could merge those together. You'll never be able to merge across the line, but if you merge those things together, you may be able to consider it a single parcel.
Mhm.
But it'll always have to have two PIDNs for sure.
Okay.
So may I ask, what's the intended tenant of the restaurant? Who's going in there?
We can't say it yet.
Is it an independent retailer? Is it gonna be
No, it's like a
a,
quick service. It's like a quick service restaurant.
Is quick service
Like
the
a-
same as fast food?
Is that fast food or?
Yeah, they call them
Yeah.
quick service or fast food. Yes, that's
Okay.
the new term for them. The chicken type stores and
They want to keep a drive-through?
Correct, yeah.
yes, they always want the drive-through now. That's the requirement. They're actually abandoning the sites that don't have them, and they're looking for sites that have the drive-throughs. There's current drive-through there now. We would propose to take the canopy down. That's not needed, but it would. Yes, we need it for the.
What is the number of parking spots that the Key Bank property is deficient by if it becomes a
In this,
restaurant?
well, we've got 13. Ideally, if I could get 30, 25 to 30 would be good enough. But we ended up with 40 when you take the house down without a structure on that parcel. It's just the way that it lays up, nice with actually it's got very good traffic flow.
So,
Just due to the fact that we've got a lot of area.
so really, Laura, I think the fundamental problem in front of us is that if we look only at the Niskayuna parcel,
Right.
the question is that we would be having a parking lot as the primary use.
That's the problem.
And so what are the ways what are
Well-
the ways around that?
It's a little deeper than that. It would be the primary use for property that's not in the town.
That's okay. We have had that happen in a couple of split parcels. But in this one, almost the entirety of the parcel is.
I mean, I know Temple Gates is partly in the city and partly in Niskayuna. And there are agreements who covers which emergency services and all of that.
Yeah.
But that's a little different.
So Paul, I was interested in what you said. There's a possibility that if you took down the old building, that you could put a new building closer to the road and create some streetscape and keep the overflow
Well, I'd
parking
have to look
behind
at
it.
that. What would be viable with ingress egress, and what size building could you get up there? and then meet the parking requirements. So it probably wouldn't be a large building, but we would look at that if it's a complete denial that it's, just parking as a primary use doesn't work. So now we'd be doing additional real estate development. So that was the thought, because the building's just in a terrible spot. So I'd like to see, there's a possibility of, was there any way that this could be get through the way that it is? If not, then I need to go back to the drawing board and see what would work.
Could you put like electric charging stations? Could that be a principal use? Could they create a parking lot that is, I don't know, the only half electric charging station in the area?
Maybe if you made some of the parking lot, like public parking or something.
Yeah, some way public or paid public, something like that.
Pavilion.
I mean, public parking is useful in that area.
Right, that area can definitely be congested.
Right across
There's a
the
dentist
street, yeah.
office and there's,
Yeah, and if you added maybe some more green space, so you could do some public parking and some green space.
Maybe. Yep.
so then it would definitely better that lot too. That's just sitting there vacant with a home that's not usable at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean,
So procedurally, just kind of broad picture here. Is the applicant also have to go to the city in Schenectady
Hmm.
at the same time?
Yes.
Okay, so you're running a dual role here.
Yes, I already talked to Christine Primiano,
Mhm.
and they're not doing a lot of work on the exterior of the building. It would be how can I say it, the facade color changes that represent the franchise. Maybe a little bit of facade work, but there's no external big changes to the building. So they don't see it as being much of a problem. I'm working on just traffic flow, which this pattern worked. So I do still have to go in front of the board though. But in concept, I've been going over this with Christine, and they'd like the way that the entrance is far enough down Palmer Avenue for stacking and, not blocking up Union Street. So that side of the project works well. So the kicker is, where do I get the extra parking? Do we do that, one of these concepts that we talked about, or do a streetscape up in the front and see if there's a possibility of getting a building that's, even a small building's expensive to build. So I'd have to see what the return would be on that, but we go back to the drawing board on that.
so for Schenectady, the use change going from bank to restaurant triggers anything for them? Do you know, Laura?
I mean, I don't actually know, but it sounds like Paul said, it seems like it's maybe half administrative and then it has to go before the planning board for approval. It sounds like.
Correct.
I'm amazed
Yeah.
that you can just gut a bank building and it works for a restaurant.
Well, the internal fit up would be different. The exterior facade doesn't have to
Stays the
change.
same.
I mean, and you
Yeah.
can put the golden nuggets inside the mall.
Yeah.
If it's
Actually,
golden nuggets.
That one's kind of one of the easier things I've done in quite a while.
I used to use that key bank, so it's pretty open inside.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a pretty open
Yeah.
floor plan. There's a couple areas that are obviously not exposed to public view, the vault and the back of the building on the drive-through side, sort of in the back facing the parking lot. But that's not. I think that retrofit would be pretty straightforward and easy for them.
Can I just add, as a capital P planning exercise, I just want to raise this one issue. Applicant's asking us to subordinate the use to a fast food restaurant on a major thoroughfare on a corridor, to use this valuable piece of frontage as a subordinate use to a fast food restaurant. I'm just struggling with that fundamental concept. This is a major corridor in our town. I'm just struggling with the demolition of although it may be an obsolete building, it is a brick style building that faces the street wall. This is tough for me. It's tough to get to an accommodation that will work for the economics of this business.
I'm glad you brought that up, Mike, Mr. Scribby Tennis. And I just wanted to kind of express an agreement with that general sentiment, and also just kind of pose a question about, how much parking is really necessary, and what would the board's feeling on seeing the Niskuna parcel being divided be? Let's say the applicant could extract a certain number of spaces from the rear of the Niskuna parcel. Would there be value in having a separate parcel that could be developed with some kind of mixed use closer to the streetscape? Would that even be a conforming lot? I don't know if these are considerations worth investigating.
A larger view of the area would be helpful in that. If I'm remembering correctly what the area is, I think that would be problematic on its own.
Yeah, I guess for Ms. Gold's reference, the key bank is on the corner, but there's a lot of road-facing parking in front of all of these buildings. So to take the back end of that one parcel, I don't know how many spaces they would actually gain, because they're looking for a pretty hefty amount of, 40 spaces in the adjacent lot.
Which I don't need 40 just for the restaurant. So
you-
could we come up with a smaller building up in the
Right.
front? I understand the concern.
Yeah, it's like 35 in that, almost 35 in that lot, 36.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see some alternatives. It seems like the board would like to see some alternatives where we keep a building in the town of Niskuna, where you figure out how you divide the parking.
I mean, one way or the other, we need to find a primary use for that.
Yeah,
Spot.
that's obviously the best way forward. A use variance for a parking lot has never fared very well in the town of Niskuna.
I'm sorry, I
Okay.
didn't catch that.
A use variance for a parking lot has never fared well in the town of Niskuna. There's been a couple of them and they've all not made
Yeah,
it.
and if they're anywhere near residences, yeah.
Yeah, they don't make it very well.
And furthermore, it's a double wrinkle. It's a use variance for a property in Schenectady to service a fast food restaurant, which is difficult for me to digest. No pun
And-
intended.
Both Niskuna and Schenectady residents have already expressed concerns over the traffic flow in that area.
Can I ask, what is the acreage of the Schenectady parcel, and how does that compare to your standard, blank slate, new build parcel size?
I'm looking in my planning application, Schenectady. City of Schenectady. It was a little over a half acre, and that's usually about what they need, half to maybe less than 3/4, depending on where the building falls within the parcel. So that's why this one laid up okay. But we got the double drive-through on this.
There needs to be some reconfiguration. The parking lot's very choppy in order to accommodate that bank teller drive-through, but I would think maybe you could improve by eliminating some of those islands and maybe reconfiguring the parking. You could improve that.
I mean, right now there's a
Yeah, but
double lane drive-through here. Do you plan on
Full
keeping it?
drive-through through the back access. So the rear of Palmer Avenue, you're coming in and you're just hitting the drive-through. And then the other ones are just in and out, which is the way you would want it. So you just dump back out onto Palmer and you're not running into the flow of traffic that'll stop you from going through the drive-through. So we worked on that pretty diligently.
Yeah.
To get the flow.
You're okay with two two access points on Palmer, the city is okay with that too?
Is that already
They haven't-
existing?
The city of
I
Schenectady
think that's
hasn't talked
existing.
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the comment was the one is just a right-hand turn. It's a turn, one way in or the drive-through, and then you come back out on Union.
And let's say you come in and then you decide after the fact you want to go through the drive-through, do you now have to exit back out onto Palmer?
I don't understand the question.
No, it's-
If
Okay,
someone's
then.
not familiar with the parking layout,
They may take part of that away. Yeah.
can you get from the parking area to the drive-through? Most quick service restaurants, the drive-through and the drive-through lane and the parking lot are contiguous.
Mhm.
Well, we have layouts like this for these fast foods that are exactly like this. I guess we can look at it. Yeah.
I mean, this intersection and this corner can be problematic at times, especially if you have a parking lot, coming in and out with a curb cut next to it. And then as they go through the drive-through, as you come back out onto Union Street, you're almost forced to take a right. Some people do try to take a left. The traffic light being there and with the amount of volume on Union Street, there's quite a bit of activity. Even when it was a bank, at certain times, there was, the parking lot was full. You would see 5 or 6 cars backed up in both lanes, especially on a Friday afternoon, or leading into a Saturday morning. So I think you should, if you're not familiar with the area, it would be worthwhile coming down to take a look at it just to see what the configuration is and see what some of the traffic counts are. But again, I think Mr. McPartland brings up some valid points. You've got a lot of circulation dedicated to a very small site, which may be better served. I mean, currently the canopy it can accommodate 3 car widths. The one against the building where the ATM was, and then they had the 2 of the tube chutes that went up into the bank.
You've seen that, right, Mr.
Waste of
Pilati?
space.
It's a double, in the summary to Mr. Arvino's point, there's actually 3 car lanes where the drive-through happens.
Now, this is completely off the wall, but I know there are some quick service restaurants that co-locate with others that I've seen. I think Taco Bell co-locates with some kind of seafood restaurant now and again. That might be out of vogue now. Would the applicant consider in building an addition onto the key bank to the east, and abandoning that first point of egress on Union Street closer to the intersection of Palmer in favor,
They need a drive-through.
but moving the drive-through east?
Towards Niskayuna
Right.
parcel. I'd have to look at it. I don't think it would work. Because they want the 2-lane drive-through, and then you have a passing lane to get out. If you need to get out, if you come through the lot, you're not going through, or you say, I'm not going to take my order or whatever, I got to get back to work. You got to be able to get out and around. So you don't have to wait for all the cars to go through the drive-throughs.
Okay, so
And
so you
They
just
could
said-
do that at 1746. They could do that is what I would propose.
Yeah, so Paul, I feel like you're hearing just a parking lot is not favorable right now. You could come up with some other options and bring them back.
Okay. For the Niskayuna side,
For the Niskayuna side.
understood.
What Mr. Darpino mentioned, we actually have a demonstration of the difficulty of the point of egress for a quick service restaurant being close to an intersection in Dunkin' Donuts, a little further west from this parcel, albeit in the city of Schenectady, but something that I'm sure several people here have experienced before, there is a left-hand turning lane, but it can be problematic certain times of the day. And to the extent that you can move that point of egress further away from the intersection, I think it improves traffic flow.
Mhm.
You could also line it up with Van Antwerp Road. I don't know if there's a benefit to that. Van Antwerp Road is a problematic intersection.
Yeah, that whole little area. The Dunkin' Donuts site just doesn't flow well. We looked at that project and it gets too much stacking for the size of the site.
That
That's
used
why
to be
we're
a bank as well.
Yeah, but it doesn't have the flow like we have here. That's why the companies, when they do their national, they look at these things all over. That's why they want that double flow going through.
So you're telling me, I don't mean to interrupt, Mr. Filati, but you're telling me that the potential tenant is expecting more flow than Dunkin' Donuts?
No, I'm saying that the Dunkin' Donuts doesn't have adequate flow for the amount of volume that they're doing on their site.
Yeah.
This
Okay.
will help accommodate it. This is their goal always is to eliminate stacking in the roads. So if you
But-
got
but-
double,
But relative to Dunkin' Donuts, the volume expected for this location is the same, more, less?
I'd have to find out the peak hours. Dunkin' Donuts is very heavy in the morning.
Hmm.
And that's when there's heavy traffic flow with everybody coming to work. So there's traffic studies that dictate the different times. And it also dictates in coffee when you're taking a left-hand or a right-hand turn into one of the facilities in the morning. So if heavy traffic's coming down Union and I got to bang a left to get in there, it's not ideal. The ideal site would have been on the right. Whichever way majority of traffic's flowing to work is those coffee shops want to be on the right hand. Swing in through the drive-through and bang, you're back out. So there's different things that go into. I understand that site exactly is definitely can be a problem. So that's why the engineering goes into saying, hey, how do we eliminate that with the traffic flow and the counts and the timing and the double lanes and all that.
Mr. Filati,
We'll look at it.
has the owner of the property directly behind this property been contacted to see if they would be willing to either subdivide a piece of their parcel or lease space?
We looked at it. We haven't contacted them. They don't have an excessive amount of parking back there. Whatever they do, I don't know if they'd meet the parking requirements. It's not like they have a huge lot and it's just useless. There's not an abundance of extra parking back there. But we can look at it. I think the first thing I'd like to look at is if you said, hey, an option is to get a building up near the road that's handsome with some streetscape and make the two parcels work. Would that work if I came back to the board with something of that flavor? That was one of the options that was tossed out there.
I mean, I think I heard we'd like to see some other configurations besides just a parking lot. So if that's one that, I mean, we tried to avoid doing the planning for you. Like we can look at some things and give you code and options and guidance, but some of the stuff you have to come up with for us. But yeah, I mean, that seems like something we would definitely want to look at.
All right.
At what point will you be able to disclose the identity of the tenant?
I'll find out and I can let the board know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Filati, you had mentioned, so the building, the tenant will require a 2-lane drive-through as it exists today?
Correct.
How's that gonna work on the outer lane? You're not gonna you're not gonna shoot the food over, right?
No. They have 2 lanes that come around with 2 order boards and then you merge towards the building to get the food. And then the traffic lane.
Okay, so 2 lane
the
prior to the
outside.
building.
Yeah, no, we're not doing a vacuum tube through there. That'd make a mess. I see what you're saying.
But
Maybe I
there's-
misrepresented the way that it was gonna be. No, you definitely have to go up against the building to get your food, or they gotta have a good arm. Maybe they throw it.
But there has to be a way
Yep.
for a car to pull out of line and go
Rather than
around.
Throwing your food to you.
Yeah.
All right, I understand the marching orders, and then I'll consult with Laura and Clark to recap and bounce some ideas around before we come back to the board.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Bellotti.
All right, thank you very much for your time. Have a great night.
You
Take care.
too.
And also, this is another project that if anyone's interested in a project lead, you can contact Planning Department and Chairman Walsh. Okay. All right. Okay, so next on the list are reports. Um,
Yes. So we put comprehensive plan update on here. We'd like to start putting it out there that we will need members for our comprehensive plan. It's a pretty heavy time commitment, although we've already had some ideas that might make it, I don't think it'll be as intense as the last time we did the comprehensive plan. I think that was a pretty big overhaul, and we can use that as a basis to add things in, tweak things. I know we want to add in complete streets, we want to add in some equity, and then do some public hearings and see what we're missing. But yeah, so I just wanted to put it out there. Please take a look and see if you'd be willing. I know we usually have a couple members of the planning board. We want a couple members from our other boards. And then if we can have some public input, that'd be great. So just let me know.
And as serving on as a member on the last board, you really take a deep dive into the town. I mean, you go to neighborhoods that you probably normally wouldn't see very often. You're visiting parks. You're reviewing a lot of the different infrastructure in the town with the different department heads. So, you're interested in taking a real deep dive into this.
Yeah.
That would be great. One of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to take the objectives and the goals that were in there and just parcel those out and update that to see what's been accomplished, what is in progress, and what hasn't been addressed yet. We have a few new town board members, so it'd be helpful for them to see a synopsis of it. The planning board gets to take a look at that too, plus all the other boards and committees.
Are you going to still be on that comprehensive plan board, David?
I will volunteer for it.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Because as somebody who has not volunteered for it, but who has lived through the authority of that comprehensive plan, right? It's, I'm sure I'm speaking for the rest of the board who's in the same position. It's a pretty formidable task, and it's a very authoritative document, right? We base a significant amount of our decisions on it,
That's correct.
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So it's not something that, it is, I think taking it lightly is probably a gross understatement, right? It's a very formidable task.
But it's very important for our town too. Yep.
Yeah, and I think in some municipalities have used third-party counsel to do it. But, I think, being part of it, Ms. Gold was part of it the last time, it's a very, very, it's an interesting process, but it's also something that this was a major overhaul, the last one.
It was.
And I think we've got a good template to work off of. But as we've seen, at least in my tenure the last few years, there are items that need to be aligned or revised or taken a deeper look at because there are specific projects that have come across, our table here to take a look at that are important.
Right.
And we can, definitely make a really good effort here to try to incorporate a lot of that stuff that we've seen over the past few years and get that into the next update.
I've been on, I believe, the last 3 comprehensive plan committees.
Can do one more.
It took a lot.
And there will be an announcement made for community volunteers, right?
Yeah. Well, so I'm still working on it, but I know that the town board had said they want other committee members, which we did before.
Mhm.
So I would love to see somebody from the Racial Equity Task Force, somebody from Complete Streets, somebody from Tree Council.
Right.
Because they're working on these issues. They have other perspectives,
And I think it'd be nice to have just a couple
but
ordinary
I would like to have a
citizens
couple ordinary
who
citizens as
can
well.
look at it and say, are you
Yeah.
people
We're
crazy?
just tasked
You're
only with the
overdoing-
comprehensive plan, right? Because everybody else is balancing their other committees. And then obviously as much public input, early and throughout the process as we can. Yeah, so my second one, the planning department updates. Probably you guys saw in the paper, Rivers Ledge does have a certificate of occupancy for their first building. They're probably, I think I've said this before, gonna do like a building a month. The site still looks like a bomb went off on it because they can't do any of their landscaping.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it
not the
does.
Time of year yet.
Yeah, but the insides of those buildings are just gorgeous, and it's really coming along. So landscaping can't be done until the spring, but
Did they do anything with the recreational building, the new one?
when I was out there looking at the building for its first CO, I looked over there, but I don't even think they have the foundation in the ground for that yet. I think they did prep it. It looked like it had some bulldozing around, but no foundation yet.
Do you get any comments from the neighbors across the river?
I have not received comments from them recently. I thought that like what Mr. Pafundi had said at that one meeting that like right now it's going to look as worse as it ever could. And it has, I mean, I know that, it's much more bare. When you go across the Rexford Bridge there, it's very, very bare, but the more trees are going to go in the spring, and then the landscaper is going to landscape. So I do think it's just going to get greener.
Yep.
And more treed as it goes. So hopefully that helps.
And some of the things the folks across the river were complaining about have already been resolved.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, what they thought was the final outside covering was not,
Right.
that kind of thing.
Right. And the lights were reduced and the planting was increased. But again, not all of the planting has been completed. So I don't think they like the white siding, and some of them do have the white siding, but we had talked about that.
I drove in Sunday afternoon and I just took a drive around for the first time and I was very impressed.
Yeah, so their clubhouse, it probably could get a CO at any time. Their clubhouse is basically done too. Not the rec, but not the rec bin. The
right.
clubhouse is where they get their mail. So, and they have like a little gathering area that they can rent, I think, that's got kitchen and stuff.
And this might have been in the plans and I just can't recall. Are the individual tenants in charge of their own garbage service? Like I had noticed that there wasn't dumpsters, there were individual from a local carrier that were pulled out.
Yeah, I don't remember that actually.
And so I don't know if that was just because of the the certificate of occupancy for the first building or if they're doing something different, but.
I'll have to look into that for you. But yeah, that may just be a choice that they make because they're really interesting apartments. Obviously, like they have very little common space. Some of them have, their own entrance doors and stuff. So they're almost like condos.
It would be highly unusual to have independent garbage service out there. It's typically on a property manager, they would supply that. It's almost a utility service, so it's
It
interesting
definitely
that you
threw me.
make that observation.
Yeah, so maybe that's just, we'll have to check.
It's unusual, yeah.
Downstairs.
It may be temporary.
It could be
Right, and that's
temporary.
why it could very well be temporary.
Yeah, there's still a lot of site work to be done. But yeah, that was exciting. We worked on that project for a long time, so I was double checking with them. They've still got to come back for their phase 2, and then when they do their phase 2, they still have to come back for final PUD. So they've still got quite a few steps ahead of them. And then for COVID-19 updates, really nothing's changed. If you guys have COVID specific questions, let me know. But there's still masks. I expect to see masks for quite a while still. You're still encouraged to come virtually if you so choose. So I think that this is a good in between for now.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to commission business. Ms. Shenfield,
Nothing for me.
Ms. Gold,
Nothing for me.
Mr. Khan,
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Mr. Scrubby Tennis.
Nice work, Mr. Arpino. You fulfilled the chairman's role
Yes.
ably and capably. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Jengus.
Just don't say- Yes.
Mr. Laflamme
Nope, nothing more.
and Mr. McPartlin.
Nope, thank you.
Okay,
I guess I do have to say, we do miss Chairman Walsh.
yes.
Right? We do miss, right, Kevin?
We were not rudderless tonight. We manned the ship.
That's right.
I have one thing I wanted to, make a formal announcement that Ms. Shenfield will be appointed to the board full-time. I believe the board's appointment is pending
Tomorrow.
at tomorrow's meeting. So welcome you to the full-time position and loved your involvement so far and good to have you on the board.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
There's a couple of available projects.
That's true. That's true. Okay, if there's nothing further, the next meeting is February 14th, on Valentine's Day.
Sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
The way it fell in the calendar.
Thanks a lot, Laura.
That's good. Okay. If there's nothing else, could we get a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Mr. McPartlin, and second by Mr. Khan. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
And any opposed? Thank you. The meeting was concluded at 9:02 PM.
Thank you, David. That was awesome. It's good.
No, that was an interesting story. Maybe Christmas next year, just for the heck of it. Actually, we'll do a little St. Patrick's Day. We'll start. That's funny. I know, it was funny. I'll say to my husband, oh, don't worry about dinner tonight. We're actually gonna eat leftovers today. I mean, that's what I think it is. Right, we're not
Yeah, Leslie.
recording anymore.
You know what I think happened in that building is they built that basement with windows and now they want to use it.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Look, I'm like, there's not, like, you keep saying it's ground floor, but.
I would love to see the actual.
Yeah, that's why I.
So the actual building permit's in there and that was. one
Well,
of the
and that's
things
what when
that
he
I go
said,
to
he
the
was like, yeah,
assessors,
you know, like,